Welcome to Big Blend Radio's Nature Connection show with Lisa and Nancy, publishers of Big Blend magazines, and nature photographer Margot Carrera. All right, so here on the Nature Connection, we are going to the North and South Carolina region of America. We are going to be in the South because both are, even though it's North Carolina, I always thought, is that really in the South and Southeast? It is. So we've got three special guests joining us. We've got Jo Clark. She's a travel writer and photographer based out of South Carolina's Grand Strand, and she has a true thirst for knowledge. In fact, her website is haveglasswilltravel.com. She loves history, great food and wine, and she loves nature. So go to her website. She's also one of our contributors. You hear her on the shows all the time. And as I was saying, she's based in South Carolina's Grand Strand. And today she's going to talk about where she gets her nature connection on in the Grand Strand. You never know with Jo. But welcome back, Jo. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Oh, doing good, doing good. I can't wait to hear about some of the destinations you're going to talk about the Grand Strand, which is that's all in the Myrtle Beach area, right, of South Carolina.
Right. Very close
popular.
to Myrtle Beach. Yes.
Awesome, awesome. We also have Mr. and Mrs. Wild on the show, Steve and Karen Wilson. They own and run the Lion and the Rose Bed and Breakfast. And when they're not on the bed and breakfast, they are on the road. They're out on a trail, probably hiking in the Pisgah National Forest, Blue Ridge Mountain, Smoky Mountain National Park, which is all their backyard, or they're traveling the country looking at musicians and rocking it out with heavy metal and whatever's going on. So it's either nature or wild musicians, and they've traveled the world literally looking for wildlife to experience that. So they definitely are all about the nature connection. They also co-host our Big Blend Radio Adventures in Asheville podcast that happens every first Tuesday. So keep up with them at lion-rose.com. So how are you doing, Steve?
Doing good. How about you?
Doing good. What's on tap? You know, Steve's the master brewer of the Lion and the Rose Bed and Breakfast. What's on tap today?
Haven't decided yet. I mean, we still have some wheat beer on tap. We're going to be brewing something up within the next week or two, though, because the tourist season is getting ready to pick up a little bit, hopefully, and we'll get something interesting for somebody. We haven't decided yet, though.
And Karen, how are you doing?
I'm good. How about you?
Doing good, doing good. So when did the flowers start to bloom in Asheville? It's pretty much in March, right, for the forest areas?
It pretty much is in March, and we're actually starting to see a little bit already popping out in the garden a little bit.
Oh, and speaking of nature connection, your garden is a certified national, it's a wildlife habitat through the National Wildlife Federation, right? That's cool.
It is.
That means that you have all kinds of birds. You have native species of plants and birds and squirrels. We know you love, the squirrels love your garden. And native plants, you give them water, there's shelter, all that good stuff for having a backyard habitat, which is awesome for guests and also for people getting married and having garden weddings. And occasionally you have a bear encounter too in your backyard. Isn't that right?
Oh, yeah. You never know. Absolutely. It's not uncommon.
Yeah, Asheville. I mean, we've seen a few bear in the suburbs of Asheville. It's pretty cool for folks to get to know. And Steve, I think, some people may think they're a pet because they have collars on, right? So basically the locals know.
All you need is a leash.
I know. Well, Jo, you can go ahead out with the bear, but some people do think it's
bring your leash.
Bring your leash. That's it. Good luck with that one, everybody. Jo, do you have any bear in your backyards areas?
We do have bear around here, and there's a fox in the neighborhood.
Wow.
And I'm 2 blocks from the beach, so people think, all we have are birds and alligators, but that's not true at all.
Oh, that's good to know. That's good to know. Well, let's go to South Carolina to your Grand Strand. People know about Myrtle Beach. It's a very popular tourist destination. But your two parks you were going to talk about where you get your nature connection on. And this is, this whole thing is to really get people out and enjoying nature and then hopefully become stewards of nature and take care of the land and the habitat and the wildlife. So you told me you want to talk about two special places. One is a beach state park. So Huntington Beach State Park. Tell us a little bit about that.
Huntington Beach is, you can't talk about Huntington Beach State Park without also talking about Brook Green Gardens. They are the result of 4 plantations that were purchased during the Depression by Anna and Archer Huntington. Then they were divided because there's a highway that divides them anyway. The plantations ran from the river to the ocean. So you've got to picture these thousands of acres running from river to ocean. And then with Highway 17 dividing them, the 4 plantations, the side that is on the ocean became eventually Huntington Beach State Park. And prior to that, Anna and Archer had built a home there, a winter home and sculpting studio for Anna. She sculpted into her 90s. She's amazing. Her sister was also a sculptress. But Huntington has the castle that they built. We call it a castle, but it's certainly nothing like the Biltmore in Asheville. It's a Moorish style castle, and it's built in a square with a water tower in the middle. That's on the ocean side, and the land or the river side was, of course, where the rice plantations, where the rice was being grown on the river side. And that became Brook Green Gardens, which became the showcase to put her sculptures outside for everybody to come and enjoy. There's trails throughout both of them. There's Brook Green Gardens sits on over 9,000 acres, and Huntington is almost 3,000.
Wow. So when you think about, that's a lot of acreage for you to enjoy nature. Are there hiking trails? Are you going trails through the gardens? Is it one pass to get into both places as they're connected or okay?
No, the state park rents that side of the property is rented from Brook Green Gardens because it's still all one big property, but the state park is a separate pass, but it's very reasonable. I think it's, I don't know, it used to be $5 a car. I think it's gone up a little now, but locals can get and if you're close enough to be here very often, even when I lived in Virginia, I came to the beach so often, I always had a state park pass. And it gets you in every South Carolina state park, so you're silly not to have it. Then Brook Green has memberships for a lot of locals like me. You have a local pass. If not, then you get a pass for a week. I want to say it was around $18 or $20 the last time I knew the price a few years back, but it got you in every day for a week because you cannot do Brook Green Gardens in a day.
Oh, wow. Wow. So that means
and
that
they have
you
a
want to
good
go.
restaurant. So at least you don't starve. They have a restaurant. They have 2 other places that have lighter fare. Like you can grab a croissant with chicken salad or something like that instead of a sit down lunch.
So with the gardens, tell us a little bit about some of the plants, and do you have like areas where you can just kind of like truly connect, like, and just really, do they have like native plant gardens or?
Well, a lot of what's there are native because they're a lot less work. If you plant native plants, they thrive, and you don't have to spray and you don't have to baby them. So there are walled gardens, separate gardens that you can go through. Then there are, of course, the paths that weave through the more natural areas. There's a long path that goes along the river that's you can still see where the rice fields were on a couple of the plantations. They have a pontoon boat that you can take a tour down the river, and they lecture and talk about the plantations and how rice is grown and what rice trunks are. So you learn about that rice culture. Then they also have what they call the trekkers. They have jeeps and bigger vehicles where you can take tours that get you out into the woods and into the longleaf pine forest.
Nice.
And back into some of the old cemeteries. There's an old slave cemetery back in the back. And I think the most recent grave back there is, I want to say it was about 1990, because anybody who was a descendant of people who were already buried there could choose to be buried there. So it is still considered an active cemetery.
Did you say active cemetery? That's a wild choice of words. Just kidding. Well,
yes.
I'm going there for Halloween.
I did say that. Yes.
Yeah, but
active means there's been
it's still being used.
A burial. Yeah, there's been a burial within so many years. It's considered active.
Yeah, and functioning.
But it's probably pretty active anyway.
Yeah. Why not? I mean, that sounds good to me. So
you know the difference in a graveyard and a cemetery, right?
Yes. Yes. Okay. One is a church, and one is not a church. Yeah.
Right. A churchyard and a graveyard would be adjacent, and a cemetery is somewhere else.
Yeah, and bringing up a cemetery is really a cool thing, because honestly, nature loves it. And because they're kind of left alone, nature does thrive in these areas, and it's peaceful.
They do.
Squirrels hang out. I've seen many snakes. I'm just saying. And that's pretty cool. Well, I think it's cool. Because also the rock provides that heat for snakes to hang out. So it's kind of cool. So cemeteries, and Steve and Karen, you have that epic cemetery behind the B&B, just a few roads down. Nothing's gone active and bump in the night at their house, as you know, and we've stayed at their inn a number of times, but you never know though. But that cemetery, I mean,
well, maybe they have quiet ghosts.
You never know. Yeah, they're being nice to the guests.
That's it.
Yeah, I think the best spirit they have is Steve's beer, but that graveyard is at Riverside, right? Riverside Cemetery.
Yes.
That is where Thomas Wolfe and O. Henry are buried, the famous authors. But I mean, those trees, those are just beautiful trees and slopes and beautiful to walk, and there's birds. And so it's a really cool place to go. Yeah, a groundhog.
Bears.
Yeah. Bears. There's a bear in the cemetery, it's all good. But Steve and Karen, you two have also spent a lot of time in South Carolina in some nature spots, don't you? Yeah. Whereabouts? Where have you guys gone in South Carolina?
We've done around Hilton Head, Myrtle Beach. We always went for the beach, not so much the nature. Unfortunately, we have never been to Brookwood Gardens and Huntington State Beach. Definitely would love to go though.
Yeah, me too. I think I've been near there. I think we've been near there, Joe, before we knew you. Nancy and I spent a day twirling all around, and we found some beautiful little park in some tiny, tiny little riverside town. I have to look up in my notes, and they had like this little, tiny park with native plants, like we were talking about, that overlooked the water. It was beautiful. It was like you were on a little island or something. We were on some island or something. I don't know, but Nancy and I, had a wonderful afternoon just strolling around, beautiful trees, just was very natural, and I love that. But tell us about Huntington's Beach State Park in regards to what people can expect to connect with nature.
Well, at Huntington, there are, besides the castle that you can tour, they have lots of nature paths throughout the 3,000 acres. There is a campground. There's camping sites and a camp store, of course. Then on the upper end, on the north end, there's a very nice education center. We had a fire about 5 years ago, I guess, and it burned, but it has now been replaced and it is built back up. So you can go in there and actually see some of the sea creatures and sea urchins and sand dollars, live sand dollars and things like that in tanks, and some of those snakes that you like so much in cages. Then they have bird feeders out behind the nature center. So this is the time of year I love to go down there and just spend the afternoon shooting the painted buntings. They are so colorful and so beautiful.
Oh my gosh.
That's awesome.
I mean, they're red and blue and green, and they're just so bright and vibrant. I love going and watching them. And then they're behind the nature center. There's a boardwalk that goes out across between the marsh, and actually there's two places that I like to walk. The Causeway, which is where you actually drive into the state park. One side is a saltwater marsh, and on the other side of the road is a freshwater lake. Well, I guess I should call it a pond. I don't think it's but about 3 feet deep. In reality, it's not that deep. In the winter, the alligators leave that pond and go to another deeper pond in another part of the park because the water's too cold for them. But at the end of when you go out across the marsh on the boardwalk, at the very tip, if you know where to look, there is a huge pine tree. And in the top of that pine tree is the eagle's nest. And so we have a nesting pair of eagles who have been there. Gosh, they've been there, I know, 10 years nesting every year. Because I've taken pictures, and I've won an award with one of my eagle pictures that was taken at Huntington Beach. Yeah, he was eating this huge fish. It was Christmas Day, so that was Christmas dinner.
Wow. That's amazing. So, I love this. I love this because I think it is true, and especially getting families out there, right? And kids to go out and have these experiences. Then it's like, ooh, this was fun. Let's, go hang out. I want to turn to Steve and Karen, Mr. and Mrs. Wild of Asheville, to find out more about their area. So let's start with you, Steve, on the Blue Ridge Parkway, because that is something. And I know, Karen, you're going to talk about the Pisgah National Forest, which is all connected, right? But Blue Ridge will take you to Smoky Mountain National Park, right, Steve?
Yeah, you can get there from Smoky Mountain, or to the Smoky Mountains from the Blue Ridge Parkway, and there's a few areas that are actually in North Carolina, rather than, I think most of the park is in Tennessee, actually. But if you get down there, certain areas you can find the elk out in Cataloochee Valley, and there's also some nice trails that's part of the Smoky Mountain National Park where you find all kinds of interesting flora and fauna that you don't find in other parts of the parkway, and everything is quite interesting. But they have a pretty good sized herd of elk, and if you go, I would say probably in the fall is the best time, because that's when they'll all have their antlers and everything, and they'll be bugling and fighting for dominance. This is going to be the king of all the girls. But along the parkway itself, I mean, there's numerous trails off the parkway. There's plenty of overlooks to see some beautiful views. You take some of these trails to find some waterfalls here and there. Most of the waterfalls that we find are down around Pisgah, I would say, though. But and it's just a nice drive. I mean, just spend your day driving along. You can go stop at all the overlooks, and every overlook is pretty much a little bit different than the next. So.
With the Blue Ridge Parkway, what's cool about this too is like you get like those views, and it changes every single minute, really, depending on the clouds and everything. Much. But it's to me, to go from Asheville, it's a bustling little city. It doesn't feel like a city though, but it's like an artistic community known for its arts, known for being environmental, and into nature. But Steve, what, it's like 5 minutes from the end, 5-10 minutes, and all of a sudden it's like, jaw drop, it's yeah. I mean, you guys had to really pick where you were going to, land with the bed and breakfast and choose. And you've been all over the world. You've been to what, Tonga, to Africa, to, I was telling someone about you the other day. I was like, oh, it's Margot who co-hosts the show with us, the photographer, and she's all, it's like, you're not going to believe they've been all over the world, looking for wildlife and watching wildlife and photographing. And so when you pick a destination, Steve, was this part of it for you? Was like the Blue Ridge Parkway and, being able to see those mountains?
It was. Yeah, it gives us a chance to get back into doing some hiking and having mountains again. I mean, I grew up in Southern California, where we had the San Gabriel Mountains, the San Bernardino Mountains, and then in our backyard. And if we wanted to go see some bigger mountains, we could drive 6-8 hours and be at the Sierra Nevadas and check that out. So it's these mountains are so much different than the ones on the West Coast, of course. But yeah, it was a big decision, or a big part of the decision, I think.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like it doesn't matter what season, because Karen, you guys have been out in the winter and taking photos of frozen waterfalls and all kinds of stuff. So you guys seem to be the epitome of like, it doesn't matter what the weather is, we're going.
No, we get motivated somehow and do
it. Yeah.
Sometimes it's hard to crawl out of bed for that, but
yeah. But I mean, once you're there, aren't you kind of blown away because your photos and everything?
Oh, sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
Nature is motivation and inspiration.
Yeah.
Yeah. Somehow when you're taking pictures of nature, you forget your butt and toes have frozen.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, you do. Completely.
The people with you are like, are you through yet? Or is it time to go? And you're like, no, just in a minute.
Or your nose starts running and you don't realize that you're now attached to your camera. I'm just saying.
15 minutes later.
You can make your own icicles. It happens. Karen, tell us a little bit about Pisgah National Forest, because that's also something really close to the city that people can get in and connect with.
Yeah. So that I would say is our favorite nature connection spot, because it's accessible year round. So that's where we can go search for frozen waterfalls in winter, get out when there's nobody out there. So it's just peaceful and quiet and really having nature to yourself. Obviously the spring brings different wildflowers, into summer more flowers. Then we get into salamander season, where if you're lucky and you know what to look for, you can get lucky and see one of many salamander species we have. And then of course fall, you got the beautiful colors.
Oh gosh, yeah. The fall colors are a trip. Yep. What about when is the salamander season and the butterflies? I remember them being there in August. Is there a specific time frame for people to witness that?
So the salamanders, I would say about May usually, wouldn't you say, Steve? We usually see them around May. Maybe even April.
That's when we'll start seeing the red ass. Maybe I think even late March you can find them if you look in the right places. But yeah, the butterflies, they start probably they'll start coming around. I mean, you'll start seeing more around June and all that, or May and June. You'll see a lot of the tiger swallowtails, and then the pipevine and spicebush start coming out.
And then the monarchs last.
And the monarchs and the buckeyes, and then the painted ladies. So it's kind of their own migration, I guess. I don't know too much about that. I know the monarchs do a big migration down to Mexico from along
from north to south,
the Appalachian Mountains.
Yeah, we just did a podcast on monarchs, and I included Lake Lure. Am I saying it correctly this time? Because I always change its name. When we went to Lake Lure out of Chimney Rock, and that flowering bridge. See, this talk about a nature connection project. They took an old historic bridge that was going to be torn down and put a new one in, and said, "No, you will not take our bridge. We're going to put a garden in." And all these master gardeners got together and planted this insane garden all along the bridge, all around it, to the side, under there's a doggy garden park under the bridge. Yeah. You always think there's going to be a goat or a troll, but no, there's doggies down there, and it's nice and shady for them. But we saw the monarchs there, and it's part of Rosalind Carter's butterfly trail. I didn't know she had one. It's a monarch way station, and that's something to talk about for, if you're going to have a certified wildlife habitat, to have a monarch way station, which helps monarch butterflies have the right food, the caterpillars have the food. And all, they need trees, just like you were talking about, Joe, with the longleaf pines. They need trees to cluster. But the butterflies in North Carolina, my gosh, I couldn't believe that time. You remember that butterfly? I heard the butterfly wings when the butterfly hit my head. He landed, she landed, and I heard it. I heard this buzzing of wings. It was just not even a buzzing. Cool. It was I couldn't believe it. I really, I mean, we didn't even have wine yet, so I know it wasn't that.
You're right.
but it was getting colder. It was getting colder, and their wings weren't, they were slower with their wings. So I wonder if I just heard that. I don't know. But those, there were butterflies everywhere. What was that trail that we were on? Stan's Knob?
So that's Sam Knob Trail, yeah. So that's off the Blue Ridge Parkway.
Okay. That was insane. And you have wild blueberries. Oh my gosh. That is. When
we always find something good there.
Yeah.
Usually late June into late August, we like to go there, and we try to go maybe once a week or once every other week, because it's constantly changing between the flowers and the butterfly. I mean, you never know what you're going to see. So that's what makes it exciting to go.
And then mushrooms. You guys have mushrooms everywhere.
Oh yeah.
Fungus. Oh my gosh. I love that in the forest areas. When did they start? And we're going to be we're going to be in the Pisgah National Forest again in May. So they should be happy little mushrooms out there, right? Yeah.
Yeah. We actually saw I would say the other day.
Already?
We did, surprisingly.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Ooh.
And that was in Pisgah Forest. Yeah.
Joe, what's it like for you, temperature-wise, in South Carolina for you? Are you seeing flowers and things yet?
Yeah, I've got crocus that have already bloomed. The tulip trees I noticed today have bloomed the last couple of days. We do yoga on the beach, and so we take January and February, and we have a dance studio that we use so that we can still get our yoga practice in. But the rest of the time we're on the beach, and we had beach yoga last Saturday. It was 71 degrees, and it was wonderful. But
wow!
But now they're warning us that we're going to be below freezing. I think tomorrow night or Sunday night.
This weekend.
Yeah. So that
same here. This weekend.
That's springtime in the South. It's it can't decide. Does it want to be winter or does it want to be summer? So it goes. I'll be 30. Oh no, I'll be 73.
Yep.
So it goes, one day is one and the next day is the next. So you spend most of your time pulling clothes on and off.
Oh, wow. Joe's off and running again. She's keeping the cemeteries alive. Joe, I wanted to ask too, doing yoga on the beach. I mean, Steve and Karen are running around hiking. They're doing waterfalls and all of that, right? So there's that nature connection. And I think in their area with the Blue Ridge Parkway, and I know you're familiar with that area too, that it is one of those places that it's humbling, right? Nature is very humbling in the area they're talking about. But I wanted to ask, with doing yoga on the beach and being outside in nature doing it, does that make a difference than being inside?
Oh, yes. Yes, we've got people in our group that won't come to the studio at all. I know how badly I need my yoga, and so I go, even though I hate being inside.
She needs to be bendy. She's got things to do.
Yeah, but when you can do your yoga and stare out at that ocean and see dolphin jumping and pelicans diving.
There you go.
I mean, there's nothing
that's
better.
Awesome.
Yeah,
that's amazing.
Nothing better.
That is, the ocean is humbling. Talk about the ocean is humbling.
Definitely.
And healing.
Oh, yeah.
I think that's the thing about nature. She's humbling, she's healing. And when she wants to kick our butt, she will. She'll do it.
Yes, I agree.
Karen, in regards to Asheville area, are there tours or ranger programs, for people who've never been out in the forest, and some people are nervous about getting into nature? Are there people that will take them out for a hike and, kind of guide them along?
There are.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. We work with several other. We love working with the community, as you know. So we work with several different local partners. Anything from you can have somebody go with a guided, just a guided hike. There's Jeep tours that a little bit more on the adventurous side and not the hiking side. There's yoga hike. We work with one that's wonderful that they do a yoga hike where you hike up to the top of a mountain. Watch the sunset, do a yoga session, and to me, that's like all in one. That's a perfect, wellness, nature, relaxation. I love that tour.
I love
Several
it.
options.
I love
yeah.
it. Very cool. Very cool. Well, thank you all for joining us. It has been a true pleasure connecting with nature through you all. And the most important thing is that we all get there. So everyone go to haveglasswilltravel.com and also lion-rose.com. All the links are in the show notes, so you can see it there. And that way you can click through from there, and we'll make sure we get some of Joe's articles there too. And also links to past podcasts with Steve and Karen about the nature destinations you can do. And just out of Asheville, it's amazing what you can do outside a city or even just in close proximity to a city. And I think that's always important for the locals and for the visitors is to get out, get away from the cars, step out into nature, and then protect her. So thank you all.
Yes. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Nice meeting you both.
Nice.
Thank you for listening to Big Blend Radio's Nature Connection show. Follow us at bigblendradio.com and keep up with Margot at margotcarrera.etsy.com.